We go to Rome. So, ancient civilization, ancient Greece, we remember the polis, citizenship, virtue, republic, and the distinction between idealism and realism as the main difference between theory and Aristotle. Okay, let's go to ancient Rome. And let's go to ancient Rome. So, let's say first thing, we have a decline in the Greek civilization because why? Actually, because Aristotle had a student. This student was Alexander the Great, who became the Macedonian emperor. They invaded Greece, and Greece, started this decline. At the same time, we have to understand that Greece was not only Greece, also part of Sicily was part of the Greek civilization and so on. But in those years, because there was also, a city who was developing in Italy. The city was Rome, and the point is that Rome was founded, but they also established Rome as a republic. So, what is interesting about Rome, we have two periods in Roman history. There was republic, and then it became an empire. For sometimes it became an empire while functioning as a republic, as we will see. And they tried to have to deploy the theory of Aristotle that you have to mix monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. So we will see how this works. So before this, what is important to understand is that the Romans were part of antiquity. They did great things. They were a bit different from the Greeks. The Greeks liked, to talk a lot, blah, 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 like philosophy. They developed science, they developed ideas, they developed philosophy, they developed mathematics. The Romans were a little bit more practice. They like ideas, yeah, but they also like, practice. So they were very good soldiers. They made a new organization of the army, which was able to conquer the entire Europe. They were good engineers. Even here in Italy, most roads that we have, they were originally built by Romans. They made the great aqueduct. I don't know how it's called, but things that move water. They already have developed a system of, let's say, water draining. So they were very practical, but they were not stupid at all. But they acknowledged that the Greeks were very sophisticated in terms of thought. So they said, let's see what the Greeks say about politics, and let's try to put it in practice. So this is why they, in 509 BC, they founded the Roman Republic, and then after a few time, they tried to combine this monarchic, aristocratic, and democratic form of government. How? Let's see. So they have two consuls, which was the monarchic part. These two consuls are just for 1 year, so they don't concentrate much power. But for those 1 year, 2 years, they were in full power. Then they have a senate. They were the distribution of senate we still have in many parts of the world. We have the Italian senate here, and we have, in the United States, they have a senate, and so on. And then they have the democracy. The democracy means that they have tribunes, they have representatives of the demos. Let's say this was politically. Let's say that society in ancient Rome was divided between two groups. The patricians, which were the wealthy class, what we would say the aristocrats that holds most of the power, had wealth, had lands, and so on. And the plebeians, all the workers, artisans, merchants, farmers, Okay. They can vote, but they could not rule. So the form of government of the Roman Republic was, as I said, in three parts. We have the monarchy part, which were the consuls. Two. Okay, 1 year term. And then for 10 years you could not serve anymore. So they avoid concentration of power. But for 1 year, one of the two consuls govern, direct the government, the other one leads the army. Because we have to understand this is a republic, and in a republic the army is very important. So, then we have the Senate. The upper class, the patricians, choose their representatives, and it was in the Senate. They served for life. They give advice to the consuls, like consul, please do this. 300 members, and they were responsible for deciding the most important things about foreign politics and domestic politics. So the Senate, this was chosen why? So they come from the upper class, so they have a general knowledge of the common interest, they're educated, and so on. So they can have good ideas about the interest of the Roman Republic, and so on. So this was the aristocratic part. Let's not forget that aristocracy in ancient Greece means the government of the best, Aristos, the best, right? And then we have the tribunes, so all the population elected the representatives who protected the rights of the plebeians, of the lower classes, and made the laws for the common people and for the republic. Okay, so it was, they tried to mix these three forms. Sometimes it happened that the tribunes were more important in the politics. Sometimes the Senate came to be more important. Sometimes the consul. It depends, on the quality. So they have all this, dialectic, dynamic, changing dynamic between these three levels of the institution. Okay. So what we have is that this is a republic. We have to understand that we have these three political institutions, but very important was the army. Actually, in Rome, the consul the army had a lot of power. Because this was a republic. All the people had to be rivals and had to be able to defend the republic at war. So, this was this beauty of political participation, and there was also, a kind of guarantee in terms of the fact that the republic remains a republic and don't go towards tyranny, towards despotism. Why? Because if the leader starts to act despotically, in a way that concentrates much power, people bear arms. So people bear arms means that they revolt, that they do insurrection, that they riot, that they revolt because they're able to do it. They have army. People means the plebeians, the lower classes. They have army because they must be ready to defend the republic with army, but they're also able to protect. So, we remember the army, the Romans, because they made a lot of movies about when they were fighting. They were very, very, very strong at fighting. The army was powerful. It was a key factor in the Romans' right to greatness. So, Rome was a republic. Rome was, there was this city, they developed this city, they were inspired by the Greeks, they took Greek ideas to inspire the city and make it stronger. stronger. Then it became so strong that they started to invade and conquer other parts of the world, you know. So it's very famous the fact that they invaded and destroyed Carthage 150 years before Christ, you know. They started to expand their territory also on the other side of the Mediterranean. So here is where we start moving. So let's say this happened 150 before Christ. So we have 300 years, at least, of Roman Republic. What is interesting for us is the Roman Republic, is how Republic worked. Then they started to move towards the Empire. Towards the Empire, it is interesting, but it's not relevant for the history of political thought, because it was in the Republic that they really tried to develop a political institutional form that is interesting for us. So they moved to the triumvirate and they expanded until that we have, you know, this famous general who destroyed the Roman Republic, who was Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, you know, he expanded Rome so much that, you know, he wanted to become dictator for life. Okay, so what is interesting for us for this course is, as I said before, is the Roman Republic. We're interested in the Roman Republic because the Romans, in terms of history of political thought, gave this contribution to the idea of the Republic. Their contribution to our ideas still nowadays is based on the Republican ideas. So we are interested in that part. Then we know that in 44 before Christ, Julius Caesar destroyed the Republic and basically paved the way for the establishment of an empire. The Senate knew that, so the Senate started, you know, So what is the point? You know, what we see is that in the Republic, the army is very important, as we say, because the army is the expression of the fact that every single citizen had to be active and they had to be ready, you know, to participate in a war to defend the Republic. So in the Republic, the army is very important, but this gave so much power to, you know, the generals, the leaders of the army. So Julius Caesar was the leader of the army. He expanded so much the territory. He gave so much power to the Romans. So he made a politics which increased, you know, he established new colony. It was a very powerful politics, but the Senate said, yeah, it's a powerful politics, but our principle is that we cannot have a tyrant, we cannot have a monarch, we cannot have a domination, because the Rome should be a republic, and republic means that the rest politics belongs to this public, belongs to anybody. So they say, yeah, we understand that Julius Caesar is doing a great politics, but we cannot accept the risk of having domination, of having a dominant single power. So they started, but, you know, at that point, it was already, it paved the way for the transformation of the Roman Empire into a republic. We're not interested in the details here, because this is a course of history of political thought. This means that we only focus on the ideas, on thoughts. We don't want to know the events, you know. So when you come to the exam, you must know the concepts, the ideas, the doctrines, maybe the institutions. It's important to understand how the institutions of the Roman Republic works. But what you have to forget about is the dates. You know, some people come to me and say, yeah, this thinker was born at this year, in this month, and so on, and they went to this fact. No, we're only interested in ideas. We're interested in concepts. So when we studied the Romans, we don't study what happened at the time. We don't study a sequence of events. We study the ideas. The main idea was the Republic. We study the thinkers. And the main thinker at the time of the Romans was Cicero. Okay? Was Cicero. So let's start before. We're interested in the idea. What were the main political ideas of the Romans? What were the main political concepts? As we said, the Greeks, they were philosophers, they were political thinkers. The Romans were more practical, so they took these political ideas and they translated into laws. So they were really jurists, you know. Still nowadays, the Roman law is the foundation of most European legal system. They invested, they call it use, So they invented jurisprudence. It was very strong legal theorists. So they were excellent in legislation, in administration. They built up, the first real bureaucracy of the state, the first very well organized administration in order to distribute the rights and the duties along a political community which was growing because it was an entire empire. So they had the administration of the empire. They were good in engineering, they were good in construction, and overall they were good in military. They built a very complex legal system for the empire. But they were not philosophers. We don't have any philosophers. The most important was Cicero. Indeed, Cicero studied in Athens. He studied in Greece, then he got back, he became senator, and then he became consul of Rome. So he fought against a conspiracy to overthrow the Republic by Catiline. It was very, very important. And he also wrote a book. The title is The Republic, just like Plato, because this makes us understand that the crucial point at the time was, the most important political concept was the Republic. Okay? So his main contribution is the theory and the practice of the Republic. And so he was assassinated at the end by Marcus Antonius, who wanted to transform the Republic into an autocratic form of political authority, into an empire. So he was a politician, he was a lawyer, he was a orator, and he was a philosopher. So what is the basis of his political thought? That there is an emperor law, which is the basis for all other law, and he was insisting a lot on a concept that is very similar to virtue. So, say God and truth must be eternal, since they originate from a divine source. So we cannot consider the oppressive rule of some nation as true law, since they were based on selfish principle of human nature and the lack of the basic qualities of the divine wisdom. So he said there is an eternal law, and from this eternal law, the good originates, and we have to comply with the good. And so the concept of the Republic is a moral community, a group of persons who in common possess the state and its laws. The Republic is an association of many people based on justice and partnership to secure the common good. So we see that Cicero was developing the idea of the Republic that we already saw emerging in ancient Greece. So the Republic is a moral community. It's a community of people living together according to shared values. We can all commonwealth. We can consider, the Republic as a commonwealth means something, a wealth that we have in common. This wealth is our ability to live together, to self-govern ourselves, to be free of domination. The Republic is freedom from domination. But why is freedom from domination? Because we want to govern ourselves all together, to civic duty, to civic participation. It's a group of persons who common possess the state, and possess the state means the state belongs to the people. The state belongs to anybody who wants to participate and who wants to actively participate in the government of the public community. So the Republic is an association of many people which are pursuing justice and partnership to secure the common good. The Republic is a common agreement about law and rights by the desire to participate in mutual advantages. We live together because we know that living together is a choice that gives us mutual advantages, increase the welfare of the community. So we decide to live together, but with this decision, there is also the decision of self-govern ourselves through participation, through active participation. So the concept of republic is based on the idea of participation. So the republic is a corporate body whose membership is in the possession of all citizens, is in the possession of all citizenship. So the Republica, the state is public, belong to all citizens, and supplies members with the advantages of mutual aid and just government. Its authority arises from the collective power of the people, and political power, the right to exercise, is nothing but the corporate power of the people. So, and we also believe in this excellent of this mixed constitution, and the Roman constitution was stable. So he participates in, refining the ideas and the Roman Republic. So, as we said, what we have to retain about Greek and ancient Rome is the founding moment of republicanism. So republicanism is the first political doctrine that we encounter in our course of history of political thought. It was founded, it finds its origin in Greek political thoughts and in Roman political thought. It's based on political participation and on virtue. The fact that you have the duty to participate in the political life of the community, but you have to do it with political virtue, which is acting from the common good, and not for the private interest. And not in the private interest. So this was more or less the main ideas of republicanism. Participation is a right, but it's also a duty, and must be done with civic virtue. Civic virtue means acting not in your private interest, but in the public interest. Patriotism is a crucial point of republicanism. Republican ideas means that you must feel your political community with patriotism. Means that you have to be able to defend it with arm, with fighting. That's, we feel that citizenship is a privilege and you must honor it through patriotism by fulfilling your duty as a good citizen. The idea that's why, because the state is a res, is a thing that is public, that belongs to anybody. So you have to act with active citizenship, civic engagement, and so on. So this was the main contribution of the Romans to answer political thought. What we have to remember is this concept of the Republic. We see that this will be very important in following years, and we see that even the Americans, when they do the American Revolution, the War of Independence, and they write the Declaration of Independence on 4 July 1776, they will write that they are Republicans, that they will recall many principles stated by Cicero, and they will even mention Cicero. Cicero is a crucial founding father of the ideas that gave birth to the United States as a republic. The republic is somehow contraposed to the idea of monarchy, because in the monarchy you have the personification of the state into the monarchy, into the king. This is not possible under a republic, because under the republic you see that the state is a common good, belongs to everybody and cannot be personified with within a monarch, within a monarch. You know, that, like, for example, if you see the situation with the Catalans, you know, the region of Catalonia, they want to get independent from the Spanish state. They have many different positions. You have very right-wing nationalists that say Catalonia is a nation, and nationalists. They have very left-wing, but what they have in common is that we are all Republican in Catalonia. We cannot be under the monarchy of Spain, under the Spain king. So this is the contribution. This is the main contribution of Ansel political thought, this idea of republicanism. And we saw that this idea of republic shaped most of the history of the Roman Republic. So we have this transition from the Republic to the Empire. The Empire is, you know, very important in terms of history because they did many wars, conquests, and so on. But it's less interesting in terms of political thought because they did not have developed many political ideas or many original political institutions. So we have this transition from the last decade before Christ towards a Roman Empire. This was it was also a long period of peace, the Pax Romana under the Roman Empire and so on. But it was also the beginning of a slow decline of the Roman Empire, because, you know, the German tribes living in Germany, in Northern Europe, they started to, you know, attack the Roman Empire, which slowly became weaker and weaker. They began to penetrate in the Roman Empire in the 3rd century after Christ, and, you know, they started to attack it more and more and more and more and more and more until that in 410 the Visigoths, the population of the Visigoths, what they call the barbarians, attacked the city of Rome. And this is, you know, a symbolic date of the fall of the Roman Empire. You know, so we have the invasion from the barbarians. You know, they united 70 cities. Yes, they attacked Rome in 454, and in 476 after Christ, the last Roman Empire was killed by the German warlord Odoacer. So we have seen shortly the entire history of the Roman civilization. They spent many years. Their contribution to the history is a great contribution. Their contribution to the history of political thought is limited to the idea of the Republic and to how they organized the Roman Republic to this effort to combine, you know, monarchic principle, aristocratic principle, and democratic principle. Then, you know, the Roman Republic lasts a few centuries, and then they become an empire. They become an empire and was destroyed by the barbarians coming from Germany in 452 after Christ, and the end of the Roman Empire in 452 corresponds to the end of antiquity, to the end of the ancient civilization. So tomorrow we will see what's going to happen after antiquity. After antiquity, we say that we have a period of time which is called
early modern.
Yep. Between modernity, antiquity and modernity, we have Middle Ages. It's in the middle between antiquity and modernity. So let's say we have the big Greek civilization, and we have the Roman civilization. Then in the Middle Ages, Europe was dominated by another kind of, let's say, political institution, another, let's say, civilization, if we want, because the long decline of the Roman Empire started in parallel with the growth of a new ideas of a new civilizational principle that would dominate Europe for 1,000 years. Who has an idea about what happened? What was happening very importantly in this century that brought us to 466? What was happening in these 400 years?
Secularism.
The opposites. Yes. So, there was a guy called Jesus Christ who was born in which year? Sorry? No. Which year? Not first, but zero. So, okay. So, let's say the Roman Empire was declining also because within the Roman Empire there were new ideas coming from a new principle, which was the principle said by Jesus Christ, who challenged the main values of the Roman Empire, the main values of the Roman, and promoted a new way of thinking. Especially we know that as the Greek civilization, the Roman civilization too was, founded on a form of citizenship which excluded a great part of the population, which were the slaves, which were not considered part of citizenship, which could not have citizenship, which didn't have citizenship in the Roman civilization. So Jesus Christ was the first one in the history to say the citizenship in my reign, in my civilization, is open to anybody, is universal citizenship. You feel that your life is horrible because you're a slave, you're suffering so much, but you will be welcome in my kingdom, which is the kingdom of God, which is the kingdom of Christianity, and so on. This is why the principle was so revolutionary, and they started to build the Roman Catholic Church